viewpoints don't change of a person when you're not taking things for granted. When you do take things for granted, it's all gone. It's all washed out. It's all not thought of, remembered. That person is now a vacuum of whatever onslaught you want to bring to it. Growing up, taken for granted. But not in a pity party way, actually. There's no dominion for me there. Because I was just that, a minion for the people. And I think I recognize now that even by speaking up, knowing that I wasn't getting anywhere, taking what I suggest and what I bring up and what happens and bringing it up in a way, and it being steamrolled, shut down, is an example of taking me for granted when I'm around. And on the other end of it, when I'm gone, everything now sit a certain way about what I am as an individual already says I was taken for granted even while being there and even while I'm not even there. Now I gotta get to a more interpersonal relationship to that. I didn't take anyone for granted when I was around them. That's why everyone literally can say I was around the people, cared for the people, did even the littlest task for the people constantly. Already telling you right there that that is not an example of someone who takes things for granted. I just recognize when you do. Now, I recognized what you do now. And I recognized the emotional response I'm getting and I'm giving. And I value my emotional response more than I value doing tasks when I'm taken for granted for them. By being there or by not being there, none of those associations would change the outlook and the expanse of what those actions mean. That they did means taken for granted. But I kept trying for so long. With all of you out there that known me, that I wasn't able to take myself out of the stance of not taking the people for granted that were taking me for granted. And then, knowing that I grew up with that, taking that outside with me, and then taking everyone else for granted because I was taken for granted. It's all I was taught. It's all I was learned. So within that comes the spectrum of, I don't want to do that shit. I want to be able to understand myself, what my actions mean before my actions take place. And before they even have a substance to develop in a way to hurt or help or do anything. Because I need to understand who I'm doing that to and for and how. Understanding that is the eclipsing moment of leaving shit where you're taken for granted and you're not taking anyone for granted. So I lost many friendships and many people that could have had long-standing times with me just to be around people that were taking me for granted. Just to have that. Just to see maybe one day they wouldn't take me for granted. No. Not even today can I say that. But I'm actually glad. I honestly think that if now you're not taking me for granted, let it the fuck go. Leave me the fuck alone. Leave anybody I love the fuck alone. Or face me directly. And don't call the police about it. Deal with repercussions, go back with the tail between the legs, and understand that if you lose, you leave for good. That's the difference. Most people will not give up. When they're not taking things for granted, you'll do anything to have that point continually sit. That's what narcissism is. Narcissism is taking people for granted. I was surrounded by narcissists. I was surrounded by people who were feeding off narcissists, eating off the dick of narcissists. all because they could get something in return. I'm not interested in what's happening in return. I'm interested in what's happening in the moment. That's why I left, because I saw what was happening in the moments of my life before. And I took many people for granted. I took my relationships and my friendships for granted, and the people around me. That exposes already how much I was trying and loving the people that were taking me for granted, because I literally showed an unaffectionate resolve with everybody else, and I was showing that love and admiration to an admonishment for my own self-growth. And I'm not going to do that anymore for any of you, because I saw how you treated me when I did find happiness, and that's you not being happy in your own. You're all deflated. I'm tired of being around deflated people. I'm not deflated. This is not taking people for granted.